Okay, so we'll go ahead and start. Again, my name is Allison Jackson and welcome. I'm the Associate Director for Multicultural Affairs and International Student Support. And I would like to now go ahead and have our panelists introduce themselves, and we can start with Diego.
Hello, everyone. My name is Diego Largacha. Like Allison mentioned, I am a rising junior at Columbia College studying economics and computer science. Originally, I am from Bogota, Colombia, but I lived abroad most of my life, having graduated from Singapore. I am very excited to talk to you today about academics. Gabriel, why don't you go ahead?
Sure, thanks, Diego. Hi, everyone. My name is Gabriel. I use he, him, his pronouns. I am a fifth-year senior, both at the college and in engineering school. So there's something to unpack. I'll probably get into that soon. I study applied math and urban studies. And I am from Porto Alegre, city in Brazil, where I've lived until I came to college 5 years ago. Yvonne, now to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ivona Adwa Anand. I am a rising junior in the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, and I am studying biomedical engineering with a minor in computer science. I'm originally from Accra in Ghana, and I'm really excited to talk to all of you all and answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for that. So without any delay, let's go ahead and start with our general questions. Last week, we had a session with Dean Justin Snyder of the Center for Student Advising. So I wanted to just follow up really quick with some questions for you all regarding academic life. And hopefully this will help jog the memory of our participants as well, in case they do have any remaining questions regarding academic life from your perspective. So in general, what has your experience been like in Columbia College or SEAS? And feel free to unmute yourself to go ahead.
Yeah, I can start. So it's been really, really interesting because in my freshman year, I came in, my first semester was like really rocky because I had to get used to the Columbia terrain, to New York, to like coming to a new country. It was really rocky and I had to like adjust to these different planes. But I would say like the Columbia community really, really helped me like get adjusted. So we had like the international student community. I also had like made a lot of friends. My professors and TAs were really, really helpful in making sure that I like understood like the academic terrain here at Columbia. So I would say like there are a lot of resources here for you, and you shouldn't feel like you're alone when you're trying to adjust. This is definitely going to be difficult. Yeah, but you will be fine. Yeah, definitely.
I guess there's a lot of things I could say about my experience socially and student life of moving into Columbia and so on, but I'll try to stay focused on the academic side of it. So I think that my transition was pretty smooth, just because I had good advice of only taking 4 classes my first semester. That's normal for Columbia College students. It's not as normal for C students. So Yvonne and Gabriel might tell you something different, but Columbia College students can take 4 classes. Sometimes they'll take 5, sometimes 4. And they had advised me to take 4 my first semester just to kind of get into it, get into the groove. And I think it was very helpful for me to just kind of see what classes were like at Columbia. My first semester there were a lot of core classes, so Frontiers of Science, University Writing, Lit Hum. And I think that allows you to kind of get to know the Columbia community, get to know what classes are like at Columbia, get to know the core curriculum, and so on.
Yeah, I can go now. Well, most of what Yvonne and Diego said, I also relate to. I think for me, it was more like I was more like Yvonne in the first semester. I had come here straight from my home country, and I didn't know much what classes I was going to take, and I didn't really understand the way that university here in the US was going to be different than what I was expecting university to be back home. The concept of you can choose your classes freely, and you have the set of requirements, but it's really, what you're trying to do in the end. So there was a lot of things for me to manage. I think that one thing that grounded me was that so when I entered, I applied for the School of Engineering. I didn't know exactly what I was going to major in. I was thinking about applied math, but which I ended up majoring, but I also was considering things like civil engineering. And at the same time, I knew that I also wanted to do something, some other course, like I was thinking of a minor or a double major type of thing in social sciences. So I learned about this program that I ended up applying to, which was a 5-year program. Most undergrads here take 4 years, in which I would stay in the School of Engineering, and then I would do an extra year, to gain a degree from Columbia College. So that's how I study applied math and urban studies. So what grounded me in the end was this idea that I had more requirements to do. So since my freshman year, even though I didn't know that, I was kind of like doing intentional decisions all the time. So I think it's important that you try to plan ahead. So you try to, even though it's a freshman year, you're gonna have a degree set list in the website. You're gonna probably learn about it. I look at that, and I didn't look only at the first year of that. I looked at the second, the third year, and then I noted it down. I was like, this semester I'm gonna take those classes. Next semester I'm probably gonna take those, and so on. And that first list I have changed numerous times, but at least I had a list. So I think, especially if you're kind of lost in registration on freshman year, I would suggest like look a little bit at the big picture, think about what you want to do, look at your degree outlines, and plan ahead. And then don't be afraid, like at the beginning of every new semester, to just scrap everything and start from scratch, because that's what I did. That was my experience. And I think many of you might like be coming in with the same perspective, being not sure about what to expect.
Yeah, I want to come in real quick and agree totally with what Gabriel just said. I don't know why I only talked about my first semester of college, since the question was about my entire experience at CC. But I definitely want to agree with the fact that you should plan ahead, especially if you might think that you want to do something like a double major, or you want to do a major and a concentration, because especially if you're in CC, the core is going to take up a lot of your time, and you want to plan ahead in order to have the flexibility to change majors, to do more than one major if you want to. That was definitely the case for me. I'm very glad that I planned ahead, because it gives me the flexibility to do now double major in econ and computer science, even though that's not what I was planning to do in the beginning.
That's actually a great segue into our next question. I'm sure there's lots of things that you can offer as far as things that you wish you had known before you came to Columbia regarding classes or professors or teaching assistants. But also this week, most students should have received who their academic advisor is. And if not, do not panic. I'm sure it's coming to you soon. But advisor assignments are going out. And I know, Diego, you had mentioned before that a common question you felt like students had was just how do they choose classes? But can any of you share like how you go about choosing classes? Were there any resources that you used? And what do you wish you had known about Columbia and academic life at Columbia?
Yeah, I can go with that question. So about choosing classes, as Diego and Gabriel said, you have to make a plan. So I have like this whole spreadsheet with all the different like semesters and the different number of credits I'm going to take. Because if you slack and you miss a requirement, you might have to like take an extra semester, and you don't want to do that. So your advisor is there to help you with all of the planning, with all of the like choosing classes and all of that. Because when I came, I didn't know like how the terrain, as I said, I didn't know how the terrain was. I didn't know like you have to choose classes freely and stuff like that. So it's kind of like more work on you because you have to plan out your life and you have to plan out what exactly you want to do. So I would say like really connect with your advisor because they're going to be there with you for like the 4 years you're going to be on campus. Because like they will also help you with getting resources and the different websites that you might need to visit to choose your classes. So for classes, we have like the directory, the Columbia directory of classes, and they have like different descriptions of the different classes that you can take in different fields. So I would say utilize that resource really, really well. And there's also Virgil. So I would say I utilize these resources really well because they would help you when it comes to like choosing classes, when it comes to making sure that classes don't clash and stuff like that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And also you also have to take into consideration when you're choosing your classes, the timeline of the class. Like maybe some classes will be only like given in let me see, the spring semester. Some classes will only be like given in the fall semester. So you have to take that into consideration because you don't want to like miss a prerequisite for a particular, maybe like for your course. You don't want to miss a prerequisite if it's supposed to be taken in a particular time frame. So yeah, just take all of those into consideration. And also some classes, as I mentioned, like do have prerequisites. Maybe if you want to take, I don't know, a really advanced class, they would say that you have to have taken maybe multivariable calculus and stuff. So you have to make sure that you also look at the prerequisites for classes that you're going to take in maybe your junior year or senior year, and ensure that you take them in your freshman year and sophomore years because you don't want them to come back and haunt you. Yeah, so I'm just gonna like say that.
Yeah, I think in addition to what Yvonne just said, I think definitely being realistic is a very good strategy to follow. I know some rising sophomores who planning for classes were like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take music and that just is almost impossible. Like it is definitely possible, but registering to a music class as a sophomore is extremely difficult because they're pretty much all taken up by juniors. So definitely try to do your research on what classes people in your grade usually take. And that way you can be more realistic and you won't end up in like 3 wait lists with 5 classes you don't like on your actual schedule, because then you won't really enjoy your semester. One last thing I want to add is just emphasize the idea of using the resources. Virgil, I think, is very good because you can go on there, you can sign into your account, and then you can look at the different classes and add them to like a mock schedule. And then you can see kind of like visualize what your schedule is going to look like, and then import that into SSOL. And then when it comes time to choose, you can just pretty much just add class, and it's all very quick. So I think that's a very good strategy to follow.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, one other resource that I was going to add specifically for those of you who are in C's, the C's bulletin that you can find, I think it's Columbia Engineering Bulletin. As I said in my previous answer, like you go exactly on your intended major and they have a degree track. So like basically they give you a plan, and if you follow that plan, you're actually going to graduate with that major. That's perfect, amazing, beautiful, your job is done, right? Not really, because you probably want to tweak some things around, and as Yvonne said, some classes might not be offered, etc. But it's a good start. So and for those in CC, I don't think there is a centralized website, but if you go on the department that you are thinking about majoring in, and I say that if you think about 3-4 possible majors, visit all of those, and try to see what they suggest. I'm pretty sure they're going to suggest at least like a list of classes, and try to see. Yeah, the Columbia Bulletin website, I think, has all this info consolidated. So the CC Bulletin in opposition to the Engineering Bulletin. Second thing I was going to add was Diego mentioned the Virgil lets you put things on a schedule. That's really important, because if you woke up at 6:30 to go to high school, I did, you're not going to wake up at 6:30 to go to class in Columbia. Like, I don't know what happens, but I think this is like 90% of people who I talk to agree with that. Some people magically keep their morning routine on college, but it's much harder. Like, I think the earliest that a class starts is 8:40. And I was thinking like, wow, that's so late. Like I can definitely wake up, like take a shower, have breakfast before my 8:40. I couldn't, So I would strongly recommend that, at least for your first semester, maybe don't get an 840. And then you can go actually, whether it's fine for you for your second semester. But and trust me on that, like some of you might be saying like, I'm a morning person, but it changes. Yep. And yeah, and that's it. Also, like, have fun, choose some classes that you're gonna like. Maybe adding a fifth class if it's something that you really enjoy, and it's not that much of workload, because that's really important. Be reasonable. It's not gonna take a toll on you if it's something that you're truly gonna enjoy.
Yeah, and I'm gonna add one more thing about like registering for classes. Just make sure that you're on time for your appointment, because you don't want to be stuck on wait lists for classes that you want to take in a particular semester. Like, it's not going to be good at all. Just make sure you're on time for that, because like getting stuck it's very difficult to get like off a wait list, especially if like there are like 40 people, 50 people in the class. Like, it's just crazy. So just make sure you're on time for like your appointment. So yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I know that all of you lead very busy lives, because what I neglected to mention is that all of you are or were on the International Student Advisory Board from last year, and a couple of you are continuing on to this year. So with that experience, I know that it was a lot of time on your part, and you had to manage both work and doing ISAB work as well as your academics. How did you manage to coordinate all of that and work it into all the things that you wanted to do? Did you not get to do things you wanted to do? Is there anything you can offer as pro tips for the new students?
Definitely. I think going off of kind of the same vein of thought that Gabriel had about waking up early, I don't know what the experience for the other panelists are and maybe for the other attendees are, but I remember in high school, I was part of like a million activities and clubs. Like, it was just constantly doing after school activities and doing extracurriculars all the time. And I think a lot of people get to college with that same idea, being like, oh, I'm going to join a bunch of clubs as well. And I remember particularly in my first semester, I was talking to an upperclassman, and they were telling me like, what clubs are you going to join? And I like listed like 4 out or something like that. And they looked at me like as if I was insane. And they're like, are you sure you want to do that? I still signed up for them, but I did end up struggling through the semester, because I think just the workload in general is higher. You're also socializing a lot more with people. You want to explore the city a lot more. You want to explore campus a lot more. So committing yourself to so many clubs is probably not advisable. Again, be realistic. Don't start off with like everything. I think it is good to just join a bunch of clubs mailing lists, but then quickly shaving off the extra that you don't think you really need at all, and just focusing on the ones that you really enjoy. And then obviously, when it comes to choosing classes, you should do some research on the workload that class will have, and kind of take that into account when you're choosing other clubs and stuff like that.
It's funny, I believe earlier this week in the Life at Columbia session, there was an international student who said that he doesn't believe that there's anything wrong with signing up for as many listservs as possible. So Diego, you definitely agree with him, it sounds like.
I'm still in some listservs from freshman year that I've never been to a single meeting of. And I think that's the general shared experience with Columbia students.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
with regards to that, in my freshman year, I didn't want to commit to any clubs. I just wanted to like test the waters. So I'll just like go for one club's meeting, see if I like it, go for another club, see if I like it. Just like relaxing, taking my classes and just like trying different things, just to make sure like I'm able to know which clubs I want to commit to and stuff like that. So yeah, like with regards to the workload, I'll say time management is really important. You don't want to waste all your time watching TV or watching series, because like I used to do that. But I think in my sophomore year, I was able to like manage my time well, make sure that I get enough sleep. Because enough sleep is important. You don't want to like be sleepy or drowsy during class. So just make sure that like you finish your homework on time, and you make sure that like everything is always on point. It might be overwhelming at first, but like I feel like you will all get the hang of it. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess on my side, totally agree with that. I think that time management is the #1 thing that we suggest people to have because we wish we had, and we know that like it's gonna slip out at some point. So don't stress out if it's your first homework and it's the night before and you haven't finished and you realize, oh my god, like I'm terrible at time management, I'm gonna fail in college. That's not true, right? You're gonna get better at it. You're gonna get the hang of it. And what I was gonna add, also like Diego mentioned something about like knowing, do your research about the workload of classes you're gonna take. I think that's really important. Sometimes you just can't do the research because it's like specific classes or like different professors actually change significantly the workload when it comes to like, a math class that the professor changes every year. So you can't really go from research. What I would suggest is like Columbia, perhaps different than like schools in your home countries that you might be familiar with, like has like this thing called a shopping period, which is the first 2 weeks of classes, where basically, I mean, it's kind of a lie, but for freshman year it works quite well, because basically the rule is like there are no like hard graded assignments on those 2 weeks, so that if you want to like switch classes, change around your schedule, that's still fine, as long as there's space in the class. So why do I say it's a lie? Because one, as long as there's space in the class, and two, if you join a class in the end of second week, depending on the class, you might have some catching up to do. So there are costs, of course, but why I think that's good, because maybe you would want, like, you're considering to choose between 2 classes, and you know that you don't want that class to be time consuming that much. So if you can, during those 2 weeks or during at least the first week, go to both, at least get the syllabus for both, talk to professor and ask. And when it comes to syllabus, you might not be thinking about that now, but if your class has midterms and assignments, the timing of those things is really important. Sometimes the professor is not going to have that finalized in the syllabus, or they're going to change. They do that. But if they do have it finalized, please be sure that you cross-reference the syllabus of all the classes you're taking and make sure they are not going to have midterms on the same day. I think that's like, if you're in Cs in your freshman year, that's going to be your doom, because you're going to have physics, math, and chemistry, and they all work on the same like 2 midterms type of thing. So most likely you're going to have midterms around the same week. You definitely don't want to have 2 midterms back to back, your first midterm in college to be like back to back with something else. So if you have the option of getting that syllabus and checking like the syllabus of 2 different sections of the same class, I would consider like looking at exam dates. I think that's very important for you to manage your workload freshman year.
I can personally say that around that time of year, I do get emails and phone calls from panicked students who realize they have a conflict. And most of the time it can be worked out, but it really depends on the type of class you're taking. So it is important, as soon as you get into a class, I'm sure your professor will have a syllabus, but do check the dates, use a calendar, mark it on there, and just know when they're happening. And you will get emails throughout the semester from your college letting you know if there's any changes to the academic calendar or if there's any adjustments that are being made. So do also watch your emails for announcements regarding any changes to the academic calendar. And we mentioned the syllabus. I did, you did. Does anyone want to share sort of what exactly the syllabus is? Justin did describe it last week, but in case anyone missed last week's session.
Yeah, I can continue because I brought it up a few times. So it's very common that in the first meeting of a class, the professor is going to give you like either like a PDF or like a paper with a list of topics that are going to be covered in that class. I say general because I think that's the rule. Some professors just don't do it that well, but and it can be as detailed or as general as the professor wants. But most of the ones that I've encountered, especially in intro classes, they are really like breakdown. Like, we're going to treat those topics in the class. Usually they even say like, this week is going to be this topic, this week is going to be this topic. And they do say like when homework is due and when midterms are. And the final exam, they're going to definitely say in the syllabus to be confirmed by university. So that, you know, I don't think I ever had a final exam change. So if they say a preliminary date, 90% of the chance it's going to be there. So
Thank you, Gabriel. And I believe in your experience, do your professors usually give out the syllabus on the first day of class, or do they usually wait for a little bit?
So
Definitely
most,
the first day.
yeah.
Go ahead, Ivan.
I was just gonna say most of the time it's like on coursework. And mostly they would update like coursework a week before classes start. So you have to like keep that in mind and just be checking the coursework site.
Yeah, sometimes the professors expect you to read the syllabus before even the first class, because they'll post it on coursework. So just be aware of that. Something else I want to say is that, for example, if you're thinking of two classes in the shopping week period, and there are two classes that happen at the same time, for example, or one class that happens at the exact same time as a class that you really want to go, and you know that you're going to go for sure to, you can just reach out to the professor and ask for the syllabus if it's not already included in the coursework site. And you could also let them know of your intention of like considering the class and so on, just so they know of your interest. But Allison, I don't know if you want to move on to the next question.
Yes, we actually have a question from the chat, which I think is actually a pretty good one. So I think I'm going to ask folks, if you want to ask your question live, then I'll go ahead and open up your window, but you can also raise your hand and I'll see it that way too. So the first question, sorry. The first question I want to address is about university writing for international students. It's mandatory for everyone to do a university writing course, but there is one that is geared towards international students. And I know that there's some popular professors out there that everyone likes, and then there's some that people struggle with a little bit. But when it comes to the university writing course, do you recommend it, or is it better just to take the standard class?
Yeah, I'll definitely recommend it because I had issues. I don't like writing essays in general, but I would say my professor was really nice. She was really, really helpful and in like just getting into the groove of writing and everything. She really helped me with the resources and stuff. And I would say to utilize the writing center as well. Like the writing center is like this place you go and then you meet different people who will help you with ideas for your essays for different classes. So I would say utilize the writing center to its max because they're really there to help you. But yeah, I would definitely recommend taking the international, like the university writing for international students class because it really helped me.
I was also in the international section of your writing. I think I would have been fine in the normal one as well. I definitely think that the international section is a bit, I don't know if I'd say it's a bit easier, but it's more aware that as international students, sometimes you might be more challenged in writing classic writing assignments that some students have been doing their whole life. My experience was that my class was almost 70%, I'd say, GS students, international GS students, because GS stands for General Studies, which is another undergraduate college of the university. They're generally older students who have a non-traditional path to university. And they also have to take, or they also like get the choice to take university writing among other core classes. And so my university writing class had almost 70% GS students, which I think was kind of a downside for me, just because the good part about the core classes in general is to kind of meet people from your college and that you might not otherwise meet. So I think that was the caveat for me. If you're definitely worried about university writing as a class, then I would definitely recommend taking the university writing international section, just if it makes you feel better. But again, if you join it, the international section, and you don't like it, you can always change to a normal section as well. And then one last thing is just to emphasize the point about the writing center. International students actually get priority in the first couple of weeks, I think, about getting appointments to the writing center. So definitely use them up if that's something that you think would be beneficial for you.
Yeah, I mean, just as a third one, I think I want to break a little bit of the unanimity here, because I think like in the end, when it comes to the core, more than like your section, it will come down to your instructor. Even like the same section that should have this exact same syllabus being taught by 2 different people or 3 different people, it's definitely gonna have different outcomes. The university writing section, for example, the standard one that has like 40 sections, I guess, you're gonna listen to 40 different experiences, right? So as Diego said, like be mindful that like maybe you can even switch. You can find someone to, like, I personally took the international section and didn't have a great experience, so I wouldn't personally recommend it. But I stress that that's that comes down to your instructor. I agree with what Yvonne and Diego said. Like the community that I got from that section was actually a really good plus on my freshman year. I think that was really cool that like my classmates who are international students, we got to meet each other. We're still friends until now, 4 years after. So like be mindful that if you follow some advice and you find out that maybe it was not the best, 1, you can change, and 2, when it comes to the core classes, your instructor matters the most rather than the class itself.
Yeah, and Dean Snyder last week mentioned that for him, he feels like the sessions that are run for international students is a great way to meet other students. But as Diego mentioned, there might be a lot of students from one particular school because that time slot worked really well for folks in that particular school. So you can go ahead and take the international writing class if you'd like to have a classroom that has mixed opinions from folks around the world. The teachers who are teaching the international sections have done it before usually, and so they're a little bit more familiar with teaching international students as well. So it is a great place to kind of get to know other folks. And if that's not something that you necessarily need or want, feel free to go ahead and take the other one. But this is a place where your academic advisor can really help you, and you can talk to them about sort of what you're interested in and how to meet your expectations, because they obviously know who's teaching and what types of curriculums are there. Okay. So another,
Allison,
oh, go ahead.
Can I just add one? Yeah, add one thing
Yes,
on that.
please.
Like you mentioned something about instructors, and I remember that we didn't give a good advice, which is in Virgil, the link that Allison dropped in the chat. You can, for some classes, you can go there and see instructor evaluations. So you can see like what previous students answer to like an end of class survey about it. Take it with a grain of salt, because not everyone is happy with the class for different reasons when they feel that. But I think it's a good way, like if you're choosing between different sections with the same class that both work fine for you, it's a good way to gauge like whether people like that particular section or not. So definitely, if you have the option, check out Virgil and go on instructor evaluations. I think it's interesting.
And there were some resources that were mentioned last week along with Virgil. COPA was one that Dean Snyder mentioned. And so if you did register for last week's section, then you will receive the resources that were sent out then. If you did not register for last week's session, feel free to go ahead and chat me your uni And I'll go ahead and send that out to you today as well. Okay. Okay. So there doesn't seem to be any other questions that are related to academics here, but one person asked if you have any information about how to join mailing lists, but also how do you know about events that are happening on campus? Like, what are the best ways for students to do that?
So the best way to join mailing lists for sure is during the club fair. I don't know what the like mode, like how they're gonna do the club fair this year, whether it's gonna be in person or online. I don't know. Hopefully it's in person.
It
Um,
is going to be in person and outside.
I
So there was lots of
hopefully,
debate, but
hopefully it doesn't rain like it did my freshman year during the club fair. But anyways, how it works is that all the different clubs put up different stands around College Walk in that area, and basically just walk around the entire thing, looking at the posters each club has, and whichever seems remotely interesting to you, either write your name down in the little Google form they have in their computer, or write your name down in the little sign up sheet that they have with your uni and your email, and then you're in the mailing list. It's as easy as that. As for finding out about events, I'd say probably the best way is either word of mouth, but that's very dependent on who you talk to. But I think the most reliable way would be to just be in the class Facebook group. I think that's pretty much all advertisement of events and like joining clubs and stuff like that, because I think that's one of the only ways really to advertise to a centralized student body. So if you don't have Facebook, because I know a lot of people don't have Facebook anymore, I definitely maybe consider getting Facebook and joining the class Facebook page, just so you can have that avenue of being aware of events happening and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think University Life also sends out emails. I used to ignore like a bunch of emails that come into my email, but I'm gonna take them more seriously because like going for events is really important in like increasing your social network, making new friends and stuff like that. So yeah, don't ignore those emails that University Life sends out.
Just to wrap it up, I'm going to say a little bit of the opposite. Also don't think that you have to go to thousands of events. I think we have said that before, like definitely go because they're good, but also don't freak out if you just don't want to at first, because it might be tough to like be exposed to like so many things at once. So
also, a lot of people get worried that they don't join a club like the first semester of college, and they're like, I will never be able to join that club ever. But that's not true at all. Most clubs, I mean, clubs are incentivized to have as many people as they can. So if you show interest in joining that club, for the grand majority of clubs, I'd say they'll be happy to at least receive your application, because like many clubs work with applications and then interviews and stuff like that. But joining them or applying for them is not hard, and they'd be happy to receive your application pretty much anytime.
And I want to add, from my experience, I've only been at Columbia since February 2019, but what I've noticed about the club fairs is that the ones who have their table and have all their swag together and posters and t-shirts going and all these things, they tend to be the ones that are the most organized or have like an idea of what they want to do for that year. For this year, and I would say in general, even if that's been the case in the past, it's not always reflective of that, because there's also a lot of students who move on to campus and they're taking it easy for the first month because they're getting their classes together. They're trying to figure out everything. I imagine this year that will be the same. So even though it's a great sign when we have folks who are active and have a wonderful table going on, there are lots of other clubs that may not be present at the club fair, but are doing just as many things, but just haven't gotten space at the fair. Because if you can believe it or not, there's a lot of people out on the plaza, but we run out of space. And so people who want a table, we can't even give them one because there's just no room. So that's something to consider as well. And there was a really great question that someone had submitted during the registration. And that was that they wanted to know, how do you balance keeping a tight-knit community with students from your own home country while integrating into Columbia as a new community? Thoughts on that?
Definitely do a lot of phone calls, WhatsApp calls back home. At first, I don't know. I think at first, like, it might be more important to like, at least for me, like, more important to make sure that like your friends back home still talk to you and like you know them already. So it might be less overwhelming to like rely on the connection. So you know, definitely make time for them. It will get harder though, because we're all working on different schedules, for many of you, different time zones. So don't get stressed out as well if like you suddenly realize that like, oh, I can't make that much time to like my friends back home. I would say that at least for the first weeks, for the first month or so, it's pretty important though to have that connection with friends that you still have back home. So I will try. Like for me, it was easy because Brazil and New York are like 2 hours apart. So so I can speak to like for people that have like their friends sleeping and they're awake. But yeah, if you can make some time, I think it's really important at first.
Yeah, and I'm going to speak about like the student community here. So there are definitely like there are a lot of organizations that like tailored to particular regions in the world. So like there's the Chinese Students Club, the African Students Association, the Columbia Iranian Students Organization. Like there are a lot. So I would say that you should try and just find your niche first and then get grounded here at Columbia and then branch out from there. So that's what I did my freshman year. I found the Ghanaian student community. Normally it's not like you might not have a club for where you're coming from, but like you definitely meet other students who are also from your home country. So like just find them, get grounded here at Columbia, and then branch out from there. You don't have to stay in the circle that you made. Just branch out, meet new people, because like some of them will have like one of your friends has a friend who has a friend. So like just like make sure that you branch out from your student community and like those from your home country and make new friends. Yeah, that's what I would say. That's what I use. Yeah.
I will slightly disagree with Yvonne here. Sorry, Yvonne. But I think it's kind of dangerous to maybe settle in too quickly. I don't know if that's what you were referring to, Yvonne, but I think definitely a lot of people might rush into just settling in with one specific group, and then we'll try to branch out later when, I mean, I wouldn't say that people are not willing to make friends later on, but it's just not the same like first week of college kind of vibe where everyone wants to meet everyone. I definitely say like meet a lot of people, get to know a lot of people, and then you can kind of realize what you want to do and like who you want to hang out with. But to go back to the question originally, I think first of all, depending on what country you come from, there's a chance that there aren't that many people from your home country at Columbia. I'm Colombian, so I'm part of the Colombians at Columbia organization, but the reality is that that club is mostly made up, the grand majority of that club are graduate students. And I think that's a common thing you'll find being an international student, not coming from one of the main countries like Brazil, China, India, Canada, because it might mostly be graduate students, which you can still get along with, but obviously you don't have that shared experience with. So being part of the Colombians at Columbia, I really didn't meet that many Colombians. I know a lot of Latinos. The Latino community is huge at Columbia, which is true. So I guess that kind of fits within the people from your home country because similar cultures. And in terms of like balancing it, I think the best way is just to meet as many people as you can at the beginning and then see what you fit in better with, because I know people who just fit in better with not really being a part of their home country like group of people. And I know other people that pretty much entirely fit in with their home country group of people. So it really depends on who you are, how well you get along with people, and so on. So it's really a personalized thing.
Thank you. And there are so many ways to be involved. And the question about listservs and things like that, certainly International at Columbia has one. And as soon as I have my student coordinator in place, I'll start sending out newsletters in the fall. Right now, as new students, all of your information is basically being gathered from Countdown to Columbia. And so as new students, you're getting very specific emails. After the semester begins, you'll need to sign up with certain offices because due to respect for not spamming everyone, we basically give you the choice to sign up for listserv. So you won't get the mandatory ones that you receive from Countdown to Columbia. So definitely sign up for the listservs, talk to students to find out about their experience. One caveat for this year, as a club advisor myself, a lot of clubs are in different states of starting. So you may find that a club you're interested in is actually running elections. So if you've been a student leader in the past and you're interested in doing that, there's nothing to stop you from running as a first year student. It's just one thing you'd want to consider is just like our panelists have mentioned, you don't want to overwhelm yourself by committing to something that's new. So although I love leadership qualities in everybody, I think the first semester you may not want to do that. And I say that and I look right at Diego because he did actually join the ISAB, the International Student Advisory Board, in his first year. But he also talked about joining lots of different things. So do consider that before you take advantage of a lot of the opportunities that'll be coming up this year. So someone asked about apartment hunting, and I do want to go to that. But first, I actually have a question for the panelists that I think does come up, but I don't see it in the chat right now. But one of the things that was mentioned earlier this week was about how on-campus work can sometimes be a place where people meet other folks and gain some basic skills. And you can also document that you've worked in the United States before you go out to do an internship off campus or something like that. Can you speak to your experiences or your decision about whether you did or did not apply for on-campus work?
Yeah, in my freshman, oh, sorry. Do you want to go? Okay. Yeah, in my freshman year, I didn't have a job. Because I didn't want to overwhelm myself. So I was just like taking classes and joining clubs. But sophomore year, when COVID hit, after COVID hit, during the pandemic, I was able to get a job with the School of Professional Studies. And yeah, I would definitely say it's a great way to network, but I guess the networking part was taken out because of the pandemic. And so it was kind of like an isolated job. I had to do it like on my own. But I believe that like post-pandemic, like everything will be much better. So definitely you will get a chance to like network with other people and stuff like that. So yeah. And yeah, I guess that's it.
Yeah, I'm gonna second what Yvonne said. Like on my freshman year, I didn't have any type of employment on campus. Then what I did in second year, which I think is really common for international students, is I started working as a teaching assistant, TA. When you say TA, that's what I mean. We probably have said this a few times and you might be lost. But for math classes. So what happens is, if you're a teaching assistant, you're going to be helping the professor in a class you already took to grade homeworks. You're going to hold office hours to answer questions, etc. And that's easily, I would say, the most international friendly type of job on campus that you can find because it's very widespread. It's mostly based on, have you taken this class? Have you gotten a good grade? Rather than previous work experience. And they are, at least in my experience and experience of people that I've talked to, they're pretty okay with helping you if it's your first job in the US, because there's going to be some bureaucracy involved, but no need to worry about that now. So yeah, definitely consider that if you're looking for on-campus employment. And I would also add that usually, this thing for on-campus employment, and I speak from my experience as well, comes from how hard it is to understand a financial aid letter if you're receiving financial aid from Colombia, because it's pretty messy when you get that document. And sometimes they say like this would be your planned expense, but it's not really your planned expense because it's a non-billed expense, and you ask yourself, what is that? And then you conclude that you have to get a job, you're demanded to get a job. That's not really the case usually. So, but you might want it to like help pay for your expenses as well. So I would say if you're asking the question about jobs because you read somewhere that you have to talk to your financial aid advisor, it might be hard to understand them. They might not say exactly the things you're expecting to hear, but try to understand why do you want the job first. And if you conclude that there is no need to do it in freshman year, maybe you can wait until sophomore year, as Ivan said.
I also want to say that if you don't have to get a job, don't be pressured to get a job, because getting an on-campus job is actually quite difficult. You can't be a TA your freshman year because you must have taken the class before. Well, I guess you could be second semester freshman year, but it's very rare. And then the other on-campus jobs, like the people that swipe cards at libraries, a lot of those odd jobs around campus that they give to students are mostly reserved for federal work study students who are all American. You can't be federal work study if you're an international student. So finding jobs on campus can actually be quite difficult sometimes. And TA positions are oftentimes very competitive depending on the classes that you're applying to be a TA for. So definitely keep that in mind. Don't think that it's a kind of thing where you're like, oh, I want a job, so I'll get a job, because it's a lot more difficult than that.
Thanks. And since I'm the bureaucrat here, just a reminder, if you want to work on campus and you're coming to the United States as an F1 visa holder or a J1 visa holder, you do have the ability to work on campus. And so that's why we're talking about it. But for J1s, you actually need to have a permission letter. So just make sure that you check in with the International Students and Scholars Office. And for F1 students, it is a natural benefit of your status. So you can seek employment on campus. And just a pro tip for you, your reporting responsibility when you arrive in the United States, not only is it required by law, but it actually starts a bunch of things rolling behind the scenes. And basically that's where your government information is sent to different offices. One of them is the US Social Security Office. And so if you are looking for a job and your job needs you to start within the first month of school, then you want to make sure you activate your SEVIS record as soon as you get into the United States. And the way that you do that, these instructions were likely sent to you already, but you basically just have to log into COMPAS, which is the International Students and Scholars Office system, and upload a copy of your I-94 admissions record. And that way they can go ahead and start the process of activating your SEVIS I-20, which is basically just us saying, hey, this student showed up. And that's it, because, the government. So as long as you do that, your process of getting on campus work will be a bit easier. Okay. And let's see. So, oh, great. Thank you for putting in the Handshake website. The Center for Career Education is going to be your go-to resource for learning how to interview, how to set up your resume, lots of resources online for that. But after NSOP, you can always schedule a session with somebody to go ahead and have a chat about all the things that you should know. There is also a specific international student page, and they do have a little handout that gives you some guidance on some things to know as a first-year student. So it looks like there's been a couple of questions given into chat. One question is regarding whether or not there's any priority given to getting on-campus jobs. I don't believe so, but can any of you speak to that?
Yeah, I
Some
believe.
jobs, oh, sorry. Some jobs do state that they prioritize federal work-study students,
Mhm.
but that's
So-
the only priority I've heard of.
Okay, so yeah, federal work study is something that F1 and J1 visa holders are not eligible for. But if you see that in the job description, it's because people who have federal work study, that is an official financial support funding. And so offices on campus usually get like about 25% of the salary for that position is paid for by the work study program. So that's why you might see that there. Now, that said, a lot of offices are going to want to hire folks who are qualified to do the work. And so if they don't find the right person through federal work study, you can certainly follow up with them in a few weeks and just send them your resume and send them an email about why you would like to work there. And then just let them know that you're not eligible for work study, but that you feel like you'd be a good fit for that office. And if they're anything like me, they'll hold that. And then if they can't find somebody who they'd really, really like out of the work study pool, because people either have the skills or they don't. So we might go to the folks who contacted us outside of that. It's not too popular because there is a system called Handshake that monitors all on-campus jobs, but it doesn't hurt to do something like that. And another student has asked if, let's see, this is regarding employment. And I know there was a question regarding employment after graduating and being in the US. So both working off campus while you're a student and after a student. Raise of hands for the three of you. How many of you are hoping to work in the US after graduation? Open to possibilities, it looks like. So, okay, so for sure for Diego, maybe for Gabriel, which is great. You should keep your options open. And out of the three of you, how many of you have considered or have done off-campus job while you're in school? Okay. So if you want to speak to that, please feel free.
Gabriel, why don't you start since I know you have to leave soon?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so I did because my job, like what I'm planning to do is to apply for a PhD after college. So the option whether that's employment, it doesn't go into the same category. So so that's why I answered this. But during college, I did research with faculty as an off-campus work, and I think that's the really tricky part of the US work legislation, because academic research both is and is not employment. So in my experience, it was really about like understanding what I need to do in terms to be okay with the federal legislation. So in C's and now in CC as well, like so for you it doesn't make a difference. You got the option of doing your curricular practice training. I think ISSO should talk to you guys about it soon. So I would say that definitely look for, if you're looking for research options, there usually is a benefit to looking for research. There is usually a bureaucratic benefit in looking for research jobs within Columbia, but it's not a rule as well. So I have done research at Columbia my first year, my sophomore year, and I have done research outside Columbia ever since. So and everything went out smoothly. So I have used work authorization. I have talked to SSO. So once that I understood what I need to do, it was easy. It was just a matter of understanding, what kind of forms do I need to apply to, basically. I knew that I was allowed to do the job. I just had to understand what authorization I needed for that.
So
Oh, sorry, Diego. In speaking to off-campus employment, we can't go into all of the specific details of off-campus employment because it can be complicated and it depends on lots of different factors. But there are plenty of resources on campus where you can find out information about that, namely the International Students and Scholars Office. You can talk to a Center for Career Education advisor. You can talk to me about it if you like, but there's also several, well, not several, but there are online webinars that the ISSO has on their YouTube channel that you can also look to as well. Okay, sorry, Diego, go ahead.
no, I just want to say that, again, it's very complicated, and a lot of the work that we do as ISAB, the International Student Advisory Board, is kind of work with offices to make this information available to students. But from my own experience, so I'm kind of a fake international in the sense that I just received my green card. So I no longer have to worry about work employment, but that's something I did worry about for my first 2 years. And this summer I'm doing an internship off campus, and just to be safe, I did receive work authorization through CPT. So CPT is curricular practical training. It's one of the 2 methods of getting work authorization in the United States as an international student, the other one being optional practical training. CPT is through the university. So what you do is that you take a class at Columbia related to the core if you're in CC, and then it's different if you're in Cs. It's very complicated, the entire process, but really the main thing I'd say is to be aware of their resources, which is mainly ISSO. And if you're considering CPT, also the student advising office. And also, as the International Student Advisory Board, I do want to shout us out and say that we're here to support students in that sense as well. That's one of our main priorities every year, and I'd be surprised if it wasn't our priority this year as well. Yeah.
And great, thank you for sharing that. So I know that, Gabriel, thank you. So great suggestion. If you'd like to go ahead and message us with the International Student Advisory Board or myself, you can email isab@columbia.edu, which Diego just put into the chat. So please feel free to go ahead and send a message there. And also, although late, there are going to be orientation leaders who will be doing outreach to new students. So if you have questions, we will have walk-in hours again this year. That will start in August, and you'll be able to sign in, and as a group, it won't be individualized appointments, although you can ask for that, but there will be an opportunity for you to meet other international students outside of this formal setting, and just ask questions about anything that's coming to mind or any complications that you have. And most of the ISAB folks have volunteered to do that as well. So that'll be a great opportunity for you. So we are going over time a little bit. I was hoping to conclude by 10, but I figured we'd probably share a lot of information. So I am happy to stay on for a few minutes more after we complete the recording to answer any questions. If any of you as panelists are able to stay, please feel free to do that. But I would like to close just because it can be complicated to be studying undergraduate studies in a different country. And no matter how much you've planned for it, it can sometimes still be a surprise. So can you share, if you can think of anything that stands out? Was there anything that happened that was a surprise to you that maybe culturally was different than what you expected?
mean, honestly, almost everything. I think it's like it's a much different different cultural like setting, especially when you arrive and people are trying to meet each other. I think we talk a lot here about like, oh, like you know, make different friend groups, try to understand who we're gonna end up being friends with. I think that was a major thing for me. You know, the ways that I would make friends back in Brazil were definitely not the same ways that people make friends in college in the US. And you know, like what I guess like also like what does it mean to like be friends if someone also changes from country to country? So in terms of cultural differences, I would say like yeah, like we've talked a lot about like make friends with different groups and try to understand whether you fit in with that with their idea of being part of a friend group and try to understand what that means. I think it's really important and it's really challenging. I still haven't for some people.
I think I was in an advantageous position, having lived in many different countries, and I went to an American high school in Singapore that was very diverse. So I think I was very prepared to come to Colombia, just because it's kind of the same demographic. A lot more Americans, granted, and a lot more diversity in the types of people that are there. So I guess in that way, it was a little bit of a culture shock. Like Gabriel says, like the way you make friends might be different to the way you make friends back home. But I think my transition was very, very smooth, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, it was just a shock to me. Well, what shocked me the most was the food. I just wasn't expecting like anything like that. Like burgers, pizza. I mean like we had that in my country, but like I didn't know how widespread it was, like how ingrained it is into like their culture here. Yeah, like the food was really shocking. Yeah. Yeah. But I guess you kind of get used to it. So yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
speaking to
meal
mealtimes,
times are a
Gabriel.
big deal.
Yeah, was it the lateness or the early part of dinner that a lot of people had, or was it the late that you preferred, Gabriel?
Yeah, I feel like it's in the dining halls is very specific when it's like everyone is like flooding the dining hall at 5 p.m. for dinner. And then whenever I would go like at 8 p.m., the dinner was about to close and it was gonna be like all the like the rest of the food, like they were about to clean it. And I was like, why are people not here having dinner at dinner time, right? So it's
Mhm.
definitely a matter of adapting. And now after 4 years, I have dinner at 6. So I reached the compromise, 6:30, yes. So
Well, one thing for this summer, you all will find when you arrive for the new student orientation program, the dining halls will generally be closed by 7 p.m. and the meals are going to be grab and go. So no seating inside of the cafeteria. You can sit outside with folks. They'll be taking folks by groups to different places. So you'll definitely be with other students who are having to go pick up their dinner. Whether you choose to eat it at that time is a whole other thing. But there's plenty of evening programs that are going to be happening in person. Those of you who may need to quarantine, don't worry about that. We will also have programming for you. So I do want to thank our 3 panelists for today. I greatly appreciate your time, especially since I asked you all basically this week if you could do this, but I appreciate your time and your commitment to the international student community on campus. You've done so many different things to get the community going, so that's great. Any final words that you'd like to say before I turn off the recording?
International Student Advisory Board is looking for new members as well this year. We always recruit freshmen, international freshmen, and also looking for some positions for sophomores as well. So if that's something that you'd be interested in, definitely reach out to us. You can also search up in Google. We have a page in the Multicultural Affairs website. So stay tuned for that.
Thank you, and thanks for the plug. More information to come about that. So I'm going to stop the recording now, and thank you. If you have places to be, things to do, please feel free to go ahead, and we'll see you next time. Otherwise, I'll stay on for a few minutes if you have any other questions.